So, dear friends, am I audible, Amandeep?
Perfect, sir. Perfect.
Okay. Good morning to all the participants and the organizing team, and welcome to the first session of the day 2 of your training program. We will have this session in mixed way, both English and Hindi. I'm sorry that I don't know Malayalam, so only bear with me on that part. And we'll discuss some of the issues related to the factors in Kerala and particular focus on landslide. Okay. So I'm sharing my PPT with all of you, which you can see. And while we deal with it, we will start from the national scenario and then go ahead to state this focus. So, is the PPT visible now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Then let me do in a slideshow mode. Is it in slideshow mode now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So let's start first with the information. Any locality if you want to deal with disaster management, the most important is geographical conditions, is demographic conditions, and the administrative conditions. For if we talk about Kerala, as all of you are aware that Kerala's capital is in a very plain area, Thiruvananthapuram, and geographical area is about 38,863 square kilometers, which is sometimes in many of the districts like Ladakh, and currently now it is a UP, even has more area than the whole state of Kerala. Population is around 33.38 million and density is about 859 persons per square kilometer. And as per information available to me, there are 14 districts. And when I talk in terms of vulnerability, I find Kerala is a multi-hazard prone state where you have come across cyclones, tsunami, floods, landslides, and several other types of disasters, including the shore erosion, coastal landslides, and the submarine landslides, along with extreme weather events. So some of these areas have been well mapped within the state, and those maps are available with the state disaster management authority. If you look into the areas with respect to percentage of the total area of the state, you will find that about 14 to 15% of the state's area is falling under landslide prone areas, about 14 to 15% is flood prone areas, and coastline areas are about 55% of the total state area. And with respect to those vulnerabilities, state has already taken initiatives as per Disaster Management Act. State has already established the Kerala State Disaster Management Authority, which is being chaired by the Chief Minister himself, and the Vice Chairman of this KSDM is Minister of Disaster Management. Like other states, for example, Uttarakhand, which initiated since its formation a Ministry on Disaster Management, Kerala has also done so. Immediately after the enactment of Disaster Management Act, they have also established a Department of Disaster Management way back in 2005, and in 2007 this KSDM was constituted. And the policy of the state has also come in 2010, whereas the national policy came in October 2009. And also, as per the requirement for the disaster management activities, the state has also established a State Emergency Operations Center. I had the fortune to visit that state-of-art POC, which has been recently established at the KSDMA at SCOC just about a year back, and 2019 this was done, and this building is disaster resilient building, and also you have got the state and district level disaster management plans which are available on the websites, and DDMs are as well as DOCs are also functional 24/7 in your state. And the important aspects of the functional activities of your DM authorities I would like to focus is that the Kerala state is actually very much a very cohesive community, I would say, because you have very good self-help groups which have worked very well in disaster situations. For example, Kodamsri is one of the best examples for the community-based disaster reduction. And also, I learned that the KSDM had developed the plans and also the manuals and procedures for disability inclusive ERR. They have developed those materials with the help of expert organizations, and also their coordination exercises have also been carried out in this state. But despite all that, the state has suffered quite a lot in the recent 3-4 years. One of the worst disasters which happened in August 2018, when these floods have happened in different parts of the Kerala state, and where monsoons brought heavy precipitation, and also there was a release of heavy amounts of water from the dam side. These floods have not only caused the inundation of those low-lying areas, where many of the houses were either fully damaged or partially damaged. I am showing you a figure on the bottom of the right-hand side, where you can see around 2,70,000 houses were partially damaged and 14,315 houses were found to be fully damaged. Whereas this did not just cause flooding of the area, but also resulted into many thousands of landslides, which also killed people. So around more than 5,000 landslides were reported, and about 687 square kilometers of the land area was found to be flooded. So about 1260 villages out of 1664 were affected during this event. And in terms of landslide, if you are looking from our current lecture topic, about 97 villages were affected by the landslide. Besides the damages to the buildings, there were a lot of damages to the roads, to the bridges, to the culverts, and also to the livestock, poultry farms, and the other structures and infrastructure. Example you can see, I can show you flooded area, landslide prone area, affected house by a landslide, and also the road and the vehicles affected by the flood situation. So all these type of scenes were observed during the 2018 floods. If I talk from the landslides perspective, nationally, actually we have about 12.6% of our total area under the landslides threats of various levels, and also about 19 states and UTs, they are vulnerable to landslides, which include more than 65,000 villages in the mountainous terrain. And economic losses are variable from say 1 to 1.5 billion rupees per annum as per 2011 prices. Some of the examples of landslides from other parts of the country I am showing you. And you can see while the Kerala state has dispersed housing system compared to the housing systems in the other states, where you can find both horizontal and vertical expansion. In Kerala, the areas I listed, I found You have primarily 2 or 3 story buildings in most of the areas, whereas in the other parts of the country with hilly topography, they have very high-rise buildings. Many of them are 5 to 7 stories and very closely spaced. So looking into these situations, I like to share that we actually prepared a national guideline way back in June 2009. These national guidelines on management of landslides and avalanches were released by the National Disaster Management Authority, Government of India, in which the specific roles and responsibilities were fixed for dealing with landslides from the central level. A nodal agency, namely Geological Survey of India, which is actually part of the Ministry of Mines, was given the responsibility to study and manage landslide risk, with support from various other organizations. But if we come to the state level, although Geological Survey of India do have some regional and state level offices, but in the states we have a Department of Geology and Mines, which are also dealing with the similar subject areas and can be actually assigned the job to deal with landslides as well. And similarly, in each district, in the hilly terrains particularly, a district geologist is deputed, who has to actually compile all the information related to landslides and help the district level authorities. Since the decentralization after the 73rd and 74th Amendment, most of the regulatory mechanisms are done through the local bodies or local authorities, and the Disaster Management Act also has emphasized on the role of local authorities in disaster management. So therefore, the urban local bodies like municipal corporations or municipal bodies and the Panchayati Raj institutions. Panchayati Raj institutions are a strong network in data. They have an important role in regulating and controlling the incidences and impacts of disasters, including landslides. So they can also either hire or recruit a person on the subject who is having a good knowledge of landslide occurrences. I will just skip this because this is what we have the national framework on disaster management, where we are involving actually all kind of professional bodies, including the research organizations, as well as the corporate sector organizations and civil society and non-governmental organizations. So Kerala state already is working in these directions, involving the communities, corporates and the research organizations. For example, at Thiruvananthapuram itself, you have many good organizations, including the offices of Geological Survey of India, and you have the National Center for Earth Science Studies, and there are the offices of KSDMA and SCOC as well. When you have to deal with landslides, you have to actually have a continuous approach. So the first thing that we need to actually start with the landslide issues is the information, data and documentation on landslides. I remember the landslides in the Western Ghats have been studied quite a lot, and in fact the first landslide determination map in a systematic way that we come across came from Nilgiri Hills, where landslide hazard donation studies were carried out, whereas site-specific studies were done in the Uttarakhand state, in Nainital state, Kadana landslide way back in 1867 and 1880s, whereas the donation studies were carried out in 1980s. So these informations are available to only limited extent, but object database. For example, I said there are 5,000, more than 5,000 landslides reported to have occurred during the Kerala flood in 2018. But do we have object the attributes of all those landslides or documentation of all the catastrophic landslides or socio-economically significant landslides? So this we need to actually work on more details. Those who are working with the disaster management authority, they can notice this point that they have to build database on landslides and also carry out documentation of the socio-economically significant landslides so that we can document the lessons learned and also find out our way forward from that. Then second is research and development is required. Although many organizations and universities are working, for example, the Kerala University in Thiruvananthapuram, the MG University in Kottayam, and several other universities in Kerala state, they are working on it. But the research aspect is very weak still because we need to actually work in a dynamic mode, looking into the changing environmental and carrying conditions as well as the developments taking place into those areas. So we need to actually find out the use of state-of-art technologies for deciphering landslides, for detecting landslides, for monitoring landslides, and also establishing early warning systems for landslides. So the next step actually pertains to hazards, vulnerabilities, capacity, and risk assessment. So for landslides, specific thematic disaster management plans are required, which may be termed as landslide risk management plans or risk reduction and resilience plans, where you can actually carry out large-scale mapping of the landslide hazards, vulnerabilities, capacities, and the risk. And that will also help you identify the investments to be done for reducing those risks. So if you know that Sandai framework for disaster risk reduction actually envisages the first priority action is understanding disaster risk, and second is strengthening governance for disaster risk reduction, and third is investments in disaster risk reduction and resilience. So all these three terms priority actions would be possible only if we are carrying out the hazard, vulnerability, capacity, and risk assessment. And the fourth one, which is also listed here, is build back better. Learning from the recent and the past events will be covered under your documentation on the landslide. Then if you will understand that, then you can prioritize them and also plan and manage those landslides. And this would not be possible by any single stakeholder. You have to network, link, and coordinate with all other partners. So whether it is the private developers, or it is the government organization, or public sector organization, or civil society, all have to come together and prepare their plans in a coordinated manner and use tools. Then, in order to save lives, we have to establish monitoring, warning, and preparedness as well as response mechanisms. For that, we have to understand the type of the landslides, the nature and behavior of landslides over a period of time and space. I remember way back a few years before, the Amrita University in Kerala state, they did work on some of the landslides in the Manalis, and they developed an early warning system and tried and tested that. So, but that is very costly in terms of its implementation. So maybe we have to work more towards economically affordable, easy to practice, and understandable early warning and communication systems for landslides which are more interactive and dependent on the communities affected by them rather than just an organization or few experts. Then the communities, they need to be made aware, sensitized for implementation of the thematic landslide risk management plans. And all this you cannot see in isolation. You have to see that the landslides are happening because of changing climatic conditions, extreme weather events, as well as the flood and developmental activities. So therefore, we have to go for a multi-hazard contest and mainstream disaster management, landslide management with all other activities. In order to regulate these incidences and their impacts, the state has to develop landslide specific policies. For example, in the hilly terrain, if somebody is constructing a house, constructing a road or a bridge or a dam structure, then how and where it should be done and what should be the minimum parameter and norm which should be followed. So guidelines and standards along with their regulations and enforcement. So regulation and enforcement can primarily be done by the respective line department, disaster management authorities and the local authorities in a coordinated manner. Then for the futuristic way towards risk reduction and resilience, education, training and capacity building, which we are doing now, have to be done, have to be continued and sustained. Now these subjects should come in the education at all levels, right from the primary school level, secondary and tertiary education level, and the training of the concerned functionaries and the officials is very much important, and the capacity enhancement, not just the skills, information knowledge, but also the equipment and financial support is required. Now I am listing you many of the organizations which are working at the national level, from where you can see more information to know what are the works done by them with respect to your state, or what are the technologies available with them for landslide risk management. These include the Geological Survey, which is the nodal agency, National Institute of Disaster Management. Now, National Institute of Disaster Management is actually hosting a World Center of Excellence on Landslide Disaster Reduction, which is collaborating with the International Consortium on Landslides and many of the members from the International Consortium and carrying out the project under the International Program on Landslides. So you can have those information from NILDM, and also NILDM has developed a training module on comprehensive landslide risk management, directly of the resource persons and the organizations working on landslides, as well as an annotated bibliographic database on landslide studies done within the country. From that document, you can find out which landslides have been studied or which parts of the state in respect to landslides have been studied or research has been done, and what is the information available from them. Then similarly, there are other organizations called border organizations, then Central Building Research Institute, Central Road Research Institute, Central Soil and Material Research Station, Body Institute of Himalayan Geology. So they have some expertise in various areas, and National Remote Sensing Agency Center, now that has been termed as a center by ISRO. So they have these informations, and besides that there are many academic organizations and research organizations which include IITs and also the DRDO organizations, environment and forest related organizations, and several of the universities there. So the various departments which have to deal with landslides, for example, the Public Works Department, Highway Authority of India, and those who are dealing with the hydro project, they are all actually having experience on land. And the database with respect to landslides are also available from the various sources that can also be compiled using information from those areas. So GSI has now covered a large portion, or more than 80% of the areas affected by landslides have been covered in a scale of 1:50,000. As I said, you need large scale maps. So that kind of exercises need to be done by the state for micro-irrigation purposes in the scale of 1:5,000 or 1:10,000 scale. However, the mega scale maps are also available for the landslides, which are available in the form of landslide atlases, which have been actually produced by Building Materials Technology Promotion Council, the Department of Science and Technology, and also by the National Remote Sensing Application Center, National Remote Sensing Center, NRSC, and these kind of maps actually would help you decide the areas where you have to focus your attention. The red areas are actually the ones where maximum number of landslides have been falling. Let me show you an example of the inventory of landslides from Kerala, which was prepared way back in 2007. You can see large number of spots which are indicating the location of landslides, and the landslide which actually caused the fatality have also been differently marketed on this map. So you can find the areas where maximum number of landslides have been happening, and they have been affecting the lives of the people or the structures and infrastructure. One of the examples which of the landslides which happened in Kerala, then the recent landslides in Kokyat. So I remember way back Muri landslide which took place on 9th November 2001, when a marriage party was going on, and suddenly there was a heavy burst of rainfall, and the landslides happened, and many people who were attending that marriage ceremony, they became victims of that landslide. And also the 2018 landslides which took place along with the flood had also engulfed several landslides. Due to shortage of time, I could not prepare the specific presentation of that, but I just focus on some of the issues to deal with these landslides. First is the structural measures that you can take to prevent and mitigate those landslides. This is one of the policies of disaster management, that we must try to prevent and mitigate the disaster risk. And for landslides, there are very good opportunities for prevention and mitigation of the landslides, and this can be done either by structural measures or by non-structural measures. For the structural measures, it includes the civil construction work and the drainage measures, which are just listed, that one can undertake construction of retaining walls, reinforcement structures, retention structures, or drainage control measures, which may be surface control measures, surface drainages, or subsurface drainage. Surface drainage are for those water which are available on the surface due to precipitation or from other sources. Subsurface drainages are of these flows where the river erosion is causing the landslide. We can create deflection spurs, or for those areas because the landslide with respect to Kerala, they are actually it's a part of the peninsular region where we find the oldest rocks which have got any weathered and also fractured. So we need to carry out sometimes short rating, grouting, netting and use wire meshes and sealing of the cracks on these areas and slopes. The non-structural measures for prevention and mitigation of landslides would include the modification of the natural conditions which are linked to landslides. For example, when you are changing the slope beyond certain heights, it results into landslides, or if you are changing the slope gradient beyond certain extent, that is the angle of repose of those slope materials, it causes landslide. So we have to actually make regulations under our town and country planning act or guidelines and regulations so that we do not make those kind of land changes, topographical changes, which can result into landslides. Okay, the second is we sometimes obstruct the pathways of the drainages or the water on the surface or beneath the surface, subsurface. So that should be prevented. Then the activities like the deforestation and mining are also leading to landslide situations. So we must minimize those kind of activities and restrict the development in the landslide prone areas. So since we have got now, if we get the map on a larger scale, we can identify those areas where recurrence of landslide is there. So you can avoid actually construction and development in those areas and promote construction and development in less landslide prone areas. Then the other measures that you can initiate is that wherever these landslides are occurring in close proximity to the habited areas or to important structures or infrastructure, you can go for a monitoring and early warning system. This can be used, done using several of the equipments which have been tried and tested in India as well as in other parts of the world. I am just mentioning you some of these equipment which we have also used in different parts of the country and are being practiced by other experts as well. So automatic reading and piezometers, these are the first information for those where a landslide is happening because of precipitation. So you can measure how much precipitation is happening using the rain gauges, their intensity of the rainfall, and also piezometers to know the change in pore water pressure within the slope passage. And distal tape sensometers, these would help you know the displacements within the slope. Inclinometers, crack meters, settlement gauges, these are actually the measurements of the displacement, whether vertical or horizontal or inclined. Or this will also tell you the rate of the displacements taking place in those areas. In the earlier times, we have been using theodolites and also along with that electronic distance meter. But now we have got a better system where we have the automated target recognition system, where we install a system and the whole of the slope can be fully monitored either by a point system technique or cloud scanning system. 3D laser scanning systems have come now which will show the differential positions and also the exact locations and their movements are also possible using DGPS, the differential global positioning system, slope stability radar. And before the actual events happen, there is always breaking of the material, the particles of the slope mass, they get detached from each other and then they make some kind of sound which we cannot hear with our ears. But there are equipment which can actually detect those no, detachments and also inform us. So we can use acoustic emission techniques, geomodes or nanoseismics for actually early warning with respect to landslide when the movements are just initiating in terms of breaking down of the particles or the slope masses from each other. So these are some of these, and this is one of the examples which I tested way back in 2003 using an automatic target recognition system, and it did happen. Then who actually should be involved in studies and management of landslides? The first professional should be a geologist because they are well conversant with the slope mass, their history, their evolution, structures, tectonics, and the deformation they have gone through. So therefore the geologist can actually judge the stability of the terrain and its conditions and nature and behavior of those slope masses. Then the engineers who will be undertaking the developmental activities over there, and they are very good in terms of the experimental studies and also in terms of testing mechanics. They can find out the mechanical strengths of those materials and develop the models for prediction and forecasting jointly with the geologists working over there. Then architects and planners, they are the ones who are actually developing the map for the development. For example, the architects will prepare your housing plans and planners are working for the regional and the local level development plans, town and country plans. So they all actually should work together, and these planners actually should use the disaster management plan or hazard and vulnerabilities map for planning their activities on their master plans. So all plans which are being prepared should consider the existing hazards, the potential hazards, and the emerging hazards in those areas. And architects should actually consider those designs, standards, and codes which can resist those kind of hazards or which can make those structures disaster proof or resistant. And in case of existing structures, they can devise ways for retrofitting and re-strengthening of those structures and infrastructure. Then it's actually the hard-earned money of the homeowner, investors, bidders, contractors, and developers, which goes into those construction and development activities. So homeowners, particularly the common citizens and the communities, they must be made well aware that if they are buying a plot or constructing a house, then how to select a plot in disaster-prone areas, particularly the hilly terrains which are prone to landslides, and what kind of construction, including the types of the foundations, the design of the superstructures, and their maintenance and management should be followed in the landslide-prone areas. Let me inform you that NID developed a module, a book on construction of buildings in landslide-prone areas. So what are the minimal parameters which must be considered should be known to the masses at large. Then public communities, NGOs and CBOs, because one may be a visitor or a tourist going to those areas, even they need to be made aware. And all the hoteliers, all the local NGOs, or community-based organizations, and public at large should be informed about the potential risks in those areas. You can put some kind of signboards where landslides are likely and likely to happen, so that people, if they live in those areas or pass by those areas, they get alerted and they will become cautious and take adequate care and precautions to prevent the risk from the landslide. Then the disaster managers and the revenue officials they can actually devise different regulatory measures. For example, you can actually increase taxation in areas prone to landslides, land taxation, or you can give subsidies for development in areas which are less prone to landslides. So that kind of policies can be devised by our disaster management officials or the revenue officials. Policy and decision makers, if there is a good policy from the state or the district levels by the concerned authorities, it will help actually executives at the field level to implement that. So adequate policy measures in terms of the available hazard donation maps on landslides can be prepared and implemented. Then the local bodies and legal authorities. Local bodies will regulate the development and keep a watch on those development that no unscientific or unplanned development takes place in landslide prone area. So they can regulate that. And in case it has been done or something is going wrong, the legal authorities, they can actually issue directions. The matter can be reported to the concerned courts, and then the directions from the courts can be sought for disaster reduction and remedy. For terms of education, training and capacity building, although a subject on disaster management has been included in the social sciences, environmental sciences and art sciences from school to the college and university level, as well as in the professional education institutions, including both non-technical and technical education sectors, and quality improvement programs for the working professionals. Still, there is a lot to do. There is a need to revise curriculums, develop materials in a vernacular language for those states which are more to specific hazards, and also carry out capacity building programs. Now the 15th Finance Commission has allocated a good amount of capacity building funds for carrying out such activities, and the various states are likely to receive those funds, and they can plan those activities for capacity building. Finally, I would say that there are a number of Indian standards, Bureau of Indian Standards have issued codes and standards and guidelines which can be followed for proper implementation. I have listed some of them, which includes the structural measures, how these can be implemented, how you can select the best suitable materials for those structural measures, what should be their design, and how they should be constructed or implemented, and also how you can actually carry out the donation practices and do field monitoring and movements of the structures using various kinds of equipment. So these are some of those issues. And even for the siting, design and selection of materials for residential buildings, there is a guideline by the Bureau of Indian Standards, and the National Building Code also has considered the various types of hazards. For the local level of compliance and regulations, you can actually certify some of the private professionals, give them a license, because there are limited number of functionaries within the governments at the local levels, district level, or at the state level or the national level. So therefore, there is a need to actually nurture professionalism among the private practitioners also, and license them after they have attained certain backgrounds in terms of education, qualification as well as experiences with proven records. Then these can be established. Then compliance reviews. Now initially at the time of construction, the people do show some kind of activities, but later on, sometimes the occupation changes, sometimes the land use changes, and or some modifications in the buildings or construction and developments take place which are not reported back to the authorities. So the compliance of the requirements have to be actually checked from time to time and reviewed by the concerned authorities at the local levels, be it urban local body or the Panchayati Raj institution. Then technical audits and monitoring, where the masses are present. For example, if you have a say religious building, say a church, a temple, or any or a mosque or something like that, where many people come together. So we must always keep a watch on those places where the technical audits must be continued, so that these kind of structures, where masses are likely to gather, they should not get affected by these disasters like that. Then finally, we talk about besides the structural and non-structural measures, the risk sharing and risk transfer techniques. The states it can develop some kind of the micro insurance, microfinance and micro credit schemes. It has been found in Bangladesh, they developed this and they advertised this, and that was quite successful. So in Kerala also, since the local level community initiatives are very much prevalent, so they can also think of introducing these kind of micro insurance, micro financing and micro credit schemes with support from the insurance agencies or government as a reinsurer. Number of information regarding the resources available with respect to landslides, they are available from our website ILDM.gov.in. Have this called as India Disaster Resources Network, India Disaster Knowledge Network. Directories I have already told you, and number of other programs. Developmental programs actually you can link with disaster management, where we are talking about disaster risk management audit, then what kind of risk it will generate and what kind of risk it is likely to create. So both ways we must develop. So what we find the gaps in terms of landslide risk management or multi-hazard risk management is that localized attention is not given, because landslides are local phenomena until and unless we have adequate information at the local level or attention at the local level regarding the nature, behavior and effects of these landslides. It is not possible to address these challenges. Then second is, when we are looking from the major hazard perspectives, although the cumulative losses from the landslide, because they are recurring phenomena, can be even more than the earthquake, flood or cyclone. But still, because the earthquake, floods and cyclones cover wider geographical areas and the masses, they receive more attention compared to landslides. And landslides sometimes are also induced by these disasters, including earthquake, floods and cyclones, as secondary disasters. So there should be disaggregation of the data on landslides induced by these kind of disasters. So the instrumental records in terms of say early warning, forecast and impacts are available in systematic way for earthquakes and cyclones or floods in terms of monitoring mechanisms. But instrumental records of landslides are not well available, because these are either monitored or recorded using geospatial technologies which need to be validated, or from the field studies. So only limited field images are possible and data are available. Currently India has landslide data for more than 60,000 landslides, whereas we are expecting lakhs of landslides within our territory. So if I compare it with other countries, for example, Italy has data of 6,25,000 landslides, and our area affected by landslide is equivalent to the total area of Italy. So that is an indication where we must be having a lack of adequate data. And then, okay, data is available, but what structure of data? What is important attributes of those data that needs also to be very clearly defined and compiled. So systematic data collection, compilation and dissemination is needed. Now even if this data is available, I don't know how many of you have gone through or know about it. So that has not adequately reached to the masses or the concerned stakeholders. So that also becomes the duty of those who are generating those data or compiling those data, that data should reach to the concerned stakeholders. Then one more thing which has been realized on the national level, that we have insufficient human resources to do all these activities, and there is no dedicated institution who is only doing landslide and only as a responsibility. But most of them are doing it one of the activities along with other responsibilities. So it was actually proposed under the national guidelines to establish a center for landslide studies, research and management, and that's still underway. And many of the states are also themselves thinking of establishing their own state institutes of disaster management or centers for landslide risk management. And then, even if they are there, we still lack skilled, trained and informed personnel for landslide management. So the specific type of landslide training in details is required to get the effective professionalism amongst them. Lack of mechanism for training and capacity building of landslide. See, I am relating to a lecture or a presentation, but it may not be that fruitful as if you were taken to the field and then on the site itself, the field-based training is always more useful in such cases than a classroom training. So my advice is that if we have to build professionals and make them understand the landslides, that kind of training has to be a skill-based training and with multi-dimensional, cross-disciplinary and cross-sectoral training. So that is also still lacking. The multidisciplinary, cross-sectoral and intelligence approach, pooling of physical, financial, knowledge, information and experience in judgment. The civil engineers, they are dealing it with separate the way journalists have different type of information and the communities, they have different type of information. But all of them have to come together. Then only we will succeed in achieving our goal of national policy in terms of zero casualty, disaster and resilient nation. So therefore, we have to integrate landslide risk management strategy which has been released by National Disaster Management Authority in 2019. In 2019 September, this strategy has also been released, which actually envisages a holistic convergent approach with multi-hazard scenarios. Landslides as secondary hazards should be considered exclusively because they should not be actually must with the main event. Their separate impacts should also be evaluated to understand the severity of the landslide consequences on a cumulative basis. Then urgent need of appropriate prioritization and the implementation with respect to the DMF, many of the roles and responsibilities are yet to be carried out in full sense. So we have to have a more sturdy system because the policies and guidelines have been prepared, but their implementation at the grassroots levels is not that strong. That has to be strong and more with a more sturdy system. And the guidelines which were issued way back in 2009, it's almost now 13th year running, we have to see that these are implemented at the grassroots level. And the similar guidelines, they are prepared by the states and the districts in contact with their own situation. I know yesterday when we were having the inaugural program, it was highlighted by the director ILDM that we need actually state specific pertaining to our terrain, climate and developmental conditions, the landslide solution. So that will only be possible when the state itself will take those initiatives. For example, now they are planning for a conference on landslides, and that will bring all the knowledge, and also then they can develop guidelines based on those conversations or discussions, and then prepare their landslide management plan at the district levels or at the local authority levels and the state level. So then based on those plans, you can carry out the training needs analysis and training of trainers and direct training of the stakeholders on comprehensive landslide risk management. So you can look into that and use that, and then responding to the landslides which will cause threats. We have response forces, and Kerala state has also developed their own. And now we are also trying to undertake pilot case studies for landslide mitigation under the mitigation funds which has been proposed by the 15th Finance Commission. This is just a reflection of the structure of the guidelines for landslide risk management from the national level, which I just discussed in the initial part, includes landslide hazards and risk assessment, multi-hazard conceptualization, remediation practices. What are we actually doing today? We have been doing in the past, or what we should do to improve our performance. Use of new innovative techniques or state-of-art technology, research and development which is taking place in these areas, information collection, interpretation and dissemination, capacity building and training. NID can always join hands with all those organizations, departments which are interested in training and capacity building on landslides. And we can also have not only national but state or district level, but also international level programs. And we did carry out those kind of programs in the past as well. Public awareness and education, this has to be carried out with the masses. And here the role of civil society, non-governmental organizations, community-based organizations will be more dominant compared to the 9 departments. Then preparedness and response, regulations and enforcement, where now regulations and enforcement is more an activity of the local authorities as well as the 9 departments. So this is what we expect from, if we take all those actions, that we will have the reduction in the incidences and the effects of the landslides. We will have better informed, as we say, community-based approaches, aware, informed and prepared communities, better able to deal with or assess its risk and register or respond to those risks compared to an unprepared, uninformed and unaware community. Improved technologies will have the disaster specific and specific plans, policies and guidelines, and encourage landslide resistant and safe practices, better database on landslide inventories, and also documentation of the best practices. So there will be better coordination, linkage and networking of the various professionals, cross-sectorally and interdisciplinarily, as well as interagency coordination. You can also go ahead with real-time monitoring and coordinating systems involving communities as one of the important stakeholders, and also preventive and response mechanisms for the landslide. You can use these websites, landing.gov.in and ldm.gov.in for more information. So friends, I just completed my presentation. If there are any questions, I would be happy to share. Let me brief over that this line, the last slide is actually one of my favorite slides, because here when I was working for a landslide in Prakash state, the support came from government, administration, line departments everywhere, but also these wild life, the monkey came with its baby on the car, which was provided by the priest, son of the priest of the famous Vishwanath temple in Uttarakhand. What I consider is that not only humans but even the hostile wildlife become hospitable and affectionate to you. If you do good, you will have good, and disaster management provides you those opportunities. Because at that time I was trying to rehabilitate a wildlife area in a forested land which was affected by a landslide. So everybody would support not only human beings but even the wild hostile lives as well. So with these words, I close this presentation here, and I would be happy to take up any questions if you have.
Thank you, sir.